of the important functionalities when it comes to making sure that the data in your account is staying up to date. So I want to share with you some of the main problems that we face with the employee bulk import functionality, and also share with you what was our approach to resolve these problems and ultimately the outcomes and the innovations that came out of that. So first of all, to start with, what is this employee bulk import? Essentially, it is used in two scenarios. First, when you need to add new employees. So this is the first step that you take when you start with your account, or also when you have more than one employee starting in a month, let's say, and then you just want to maybe import all of this data all at once. And the second scenario is when you need to update the data of already existing employees. So for example, there is one field that you just want to update some of the data, or maybe you want to add a new field to all or multiple employees. So employee bulk import in this case can save you time. Now let's take a look at what was the former state that we had. And I want to share with you the three major problems that we faced with this type of import. First thing is that we have seen that there were way too many of unexpected errors. So imagine this, you need to import your employees, you upload the file, you wait 20, 30 minutes, and then all of a sudden, all you see is the message that import failed, try importing again. Or maybe you see that it ran out of time. So in this case, this kind of errors are not really helping you to understand what actually happened and what can you do next to improve this. It doesn't give you the confidence that if you try now importing again the same file, it will not run into the same problem. So what we have experienced is that we've really had way too many of this kind of really general errors that do not really help you out. Another thing we have seen is that we have a lot of stuck imports. Again, you are importing your file, you're waiting, and all you see is that your import is in progress. But what actually happens in this case? There is no transparency in a way of at which stage your import is at the moment, and no information when it will be done, right? When can you actually come back to this page and review the result of your import? What we notice is that sometimes there was something happening in the background that could interrupt the import process. And so actually your import was not really running. It was stopped by something. But what you could see is that the import is still in progress. It is still running, and there was no way of stopping it. So essentially, the user was blocked in this case from completing the task of importing the data. And the third biggest problem that we had is that there was a limit of the information that you can import at once into your account. So here in this diagram, there is like one example. If you, for example, need to import 600 employees or update the data of 600 employees. And in this case, what could happen is that you had to split your file multiple times, sometimes again and again and again, because generally the limit that we had was 100 rows at once. However, it also depended on the amount of data that you already had in your account. That meant that the more data you have in your account, the less data you can import. So again, that resulted into a lot of repeated work and manual effort to split the files again and again. And as a result, ultimately, that meant longer time to actually complete this task of importing all of the data. Now, after taking a look at these three major problems, let's see, what did we actually do about this? What was our approach? So the first thing we wanted to kind of set for ourselves is the initial success criteria. So some kind of targets that we can set for ourselves and target towards. So we wanted to increase the speed of this import, right? We wanted to make sure that it takes less time for you to import your data and provide the transparency. make sure that you know what happens with your import and also what can you expect out of that so that you can be confidently importing your data. And then, of course, significantly reduce all of these general errors or timeouts that are happening. So when we collected the data, we essentially defined these two targets for ourselves. The first one is the speed, right? 99th percentile. So what we did is when we collected the data, we removed the absolute worst case scenario, 1% that happens, and took a look at how long does it take for the 99% of the imports to actually import. And we have seen that it was 33 minutes. So our target that we defined initially was 10 minutes. And then on the failure side, we have seen that the average that we had on the recurring basis was 52. And we really wanted to bring it down all the way to 0 to make sure that we have no general errors. And then after that, what we did is we went into kind of the deep dive into the problems. I know in here the screenshot is quite small, but we don't really need to kind of go into details of that. That's just the screenshot of one of the sessions that we had with the whole team, engineering, design, customer success managers, to really understand the whole flow, how the whole process of this import is looking like, and what are the opportunities that we have to really improve this process and make it much easier and faster. So there were several cases, but one example that I can give is when you are importing your file, the first thing that we need to make sure is that your data is in the correct format. So your dates are in the date format, the email is the correct email address, and we need to make sure that all of this data is actually in the correct format that we can actually import. But what we noticed is that this is actually the last step. So you need to go through all of the steps, start importing, wait, and then realize that there is actually something that you need to correct within your data. So we have seen the opportunity to bring this forward and make sure that you really don't have to wait that long in order to actually find out that there's something that you need to correct. So with the team, we went into these several iterations, right, to really understand and make sure that we are resolving these problems. And right now I want to show you what were the actual outcomes, what were the results of this. The first outcome I want to share is the background improvements. And bear with me here, I know that it might get a little bit too technical, but this is a very important part that I want to share with you because one, I want to be transparent with you in terms of what actually happens when you import your data. And two, also to showcase you this, because the next improvements that I will show you, they are really coming out of this one. So this is kind of the main driver of the rest of the improvements. So the diagram here that you see is basically what is happening on the background when you are importing your data. These squares that you see with the numbers on top, those are all of the import requests. So one customer is starting the import, another one starting the import, the third one, and they are all queued up and waiting for its turn. And below it, in the blue box, that is the import processor. So there is one import processor that picks up the first one in the line and start processing and start importing the data. But you can see that it's really only one processor. So depending on the data, how much data you're trying to import, it can get really heavy on this processor. And so it can take a lot of time to process all of this data. And because it takes such a long time, the likelihood of something going wrong and something actually coming in and interrupting this process was quite high. And if something was going wrong in this case, this import processor was just disregarding the first import and taking the next one. Whereas the first one was not yet finished, it was not done, but it was placed as the last one now in the queue. And now it has to wait all the way until all the rest of the processors will be done. That was the reason for all of these unexpected errors, for this kind of timeout that you have seen because this process was really taking way too much time, or in some cases also stuck imports completely. So in that case, there were two decisions that we made. The first one, to break down this one big import processor into smaller parts, so that when you import your file, we are able to distribute this one file and the work among all these smaller processors so that they are working simultaneously and importing your data at once, which means that we are able to import your data much faster. And because we're able to process it much faster, the likelihood that something will interrupt it is much less. And the second decision that we made was to remove this all or nothing approach that we had. So this means that before, it was either all of your input just failed or all of it succeeded. And if your import is running and something interrupts it, any progress that have been made up to that point was just disregarded, and basically that import was rolled back, and that's it. It would fail. It would show you that an error, right? And so the next time you had to start all over again and wait all over again. But by removing this all or nothing approach, we wanted to make sure that even if something goes wrong, even if we encounter some exceptional error, we didn't want to basically kind of roll back everything, but we wanted to make sure that we import already all of the data that you had or we processed, and only give you the rest, so that the next time your import is much smaller to import. I hope this makes sense. And now I will actually go into more customer facing, right? The user facing things that you can actually see when you are importing your data. So what we did also is improve the result pages to start better communication of what actually happened and what is the next step that you can take to improve this. So for example, here you can see that your upload file needs revision. And as I mentioned, that what we need to make sure is that your data is in the correct format. So in this case, for example, we are providing you with the revision file where you can just fix all of the things right away and then import your file after that. Splitting also this import processor into smaller ones enabled us to show you the import progress. And in this case, it shows you basically where the import is at this point, how much data we already processed, and we are also showing you how much is left to be processed in there, so that by looking at this information, you can already somehow estimate when your import will be done. And for example, go to maybe another task within Personio and then come back to this page to review the result of it. And lastly, because we removed this all or nothing approach, we had this partial import now. So there is now this page where we are able to show you what is the information, which information we were able to successfully import already, but also which of this information we didn't yet import because this part needs your attention. And in this case, sometimes there are some of the exceptional cases, some of the exceptional errors. For example, maybe you are trying to set the person who is the last active administrator into the inactive status. So we want to make sure that you are not running into this kind of problems within your account. And so providing you kind of this warning in this case. And additionally, to help you then take the next step after that, we are also providing here the download file where we are already filtering out all of the information that was successfully imported so that you do not need to filter it out yourself, but we just keep the data that was not yet imported so that you need to review this data, make the decision, and then import only that small file. Great, so nice improvements, but let's take a look at what was actually the impact on the success metrics on that on these targets that we set for ourselves initially. So we said that we had a problem with the supported limit, right? So before, the limit was generally 100 rows. However, by introducing splitting this import processor into several smaller ones, we were able to increase this limit to up to 1,000 rows. So essentially 10x the amount of information that you can import into your account at once. The second one was about the speed. So we have seen that in 99 cases, it takes 33 minutes to import your data, one file. And by splitting it into these smaller processes that are now running simultaneously, we were able to bring this down to 13 minutes. And this is a great result, considering also that we have increased the amount of information that you can import at once. And lastly, these unexpected errors, these general errors or timeouts that we have seen. On average, as I said, we had 52 of these errors on the rolling average. And I'm really happy to say in here that we were able to completely remove any kind of unknown errors that are happening, so that we are really making sure that you can more confidently import your data. Great, but what's next? And in here, I want to let you know that it's just like any other functionality within Personio. It doesn't end here. Right? So what we have done with the employee bulk import, we did the testing with some of the customers. We did the testing with the complete new users to Personio, just to understand what are the next opportunities that we have to improve it further. And of course, what's really important to us is the feedback from you, from our customers. So this is something that we are very happy to see if you provide us any feedback via, for example, our community, because all of these things then result into the next improvements, right? So whether it is this functionality of employee bulk import or any other functionality, we're really embracing this continuous improvements mindset. With that, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. And I'm happy to take the questions if there are any.
Yes, thank you very much, Leila. You left the crowd almost speechless, but we have two questions. First of all, will it be possible to import employee data with a special effective date?
Yes. So this is one of the things that we also heard as a feedback, and we definitely have it kind of on top of our minds. There's no concrete yet plan on how to address it. There is still some of the investigation that we need to do. However, yes, this is one of the things that we are potentially taking a look at.
Thank you. And another one, how many data can be uploaded in one slot of these imports?
How many? Sorry?
How many data, how many different imports? Yeah.
How many imports can run at the same time? Or
yeah, I think so, yeah.
There are different types of imports that you can import. However, we only at the moment support one import per at a time, right? So if you're running one import, we need to wait until that import will be done to start the new one.
Thank you. And there was a third one coming in. The import functionality was okay already and is better already. Most important would be the possibility to configure rights in the role sections. Will that be possible?
To configure rights in the role section. Yeah, so that is also quite an interesting one. I would love to kind of see maybe also that one maybe via the community also, because this is one of the things that would be great for us to also deep dive and investigate. However, at the moment, that's not something that we are planning.